The US military spends $280 million annually on a single promise: if you go down, we're coming for you. That's not battlefield insurance, it's a psychological weapon. And the recent Iran rescue just proved why every adversary is terrified of that commitment. Here's the truth that doesn't make it into the recruitment posters. Combat search and rescue exists to change pilot behavior, not save individual lives. Every fighter pilot calculates risk before pulling the trigger on a mission deep in hostile territory. The $280 million we spend annually on CSAR tips that calculation toward aggression. When extraction is guaranteed, pilots accept missions they'd otherwise abort. The promise itself generates combat power. This wasn't always obvious. Vietnam created 2,646 unrecovered MIAs, bodies we never brought home, families that never got closure. That number haunted the Pentagon for decades. It created institutional paranoia that birthed modern CSR doctrine. We're not talking about humanitarian gestures. We're talking about preventing a repeat of the single biggest morale disaster in American military history. But there's a second, darker calculation. Leave no one behind changes enemy strategy. When adversaries know the US will burn resources rescuing one person, they face a choice: execute captured personnel immediately, or invest in hostage-taking infrastructure hoping for leverage. The promise forces them to choose. And here's what matters: the promise only works as a weapon if adversaries believe it's unbreakable. Every successful rescue is an advertisement to future enemies. Don't bother with hostages, we're coming anyway. Which means spending $280 million to save individual lives only makes sense if the system actually works when everything goes wrong. And that's where CSR stopped being a rescue operation and became an engineering problem with three moving parts. Phase 1, locate. You need satellite detection, radio beacon triangulation, visual confirmation. The failure mode? Pilot unconscious before activating the beacon, or captured within minutes of landing. The entire system assumes the downed aviator can communicate position and status. Remove that assumption and Phase 1 collapses. Phase 2, isolate. Establish a 30-kilometer air superiority bubble around the crash site. Suppress enemy ground movement. Deploy electronic warfare to blind adversary communications. This phase requires coordinating strike packages, jamming aircraft, and close air support, all synchronized around one person on the ground. The failure mode? Surface-to-air threats inside your bubble. SAMs you didn't detect. Mobile launchers that relocate faster than you can track. Phase 3. Extract. Para-rescue insertion. Ground stabilization under fire. Helicopter exfil through contested airspace. The failure mode here is catastrophic. Your rescue helicopter gets shot down. Now your rescue force becomes the victim. You've doubled the problem you were trying to solve. Each phase requires 3 to 4 different military units coordinating in real time across hostile territory. The recent Iran operation compressed all 3 phases into a window most CSAR missions take 4 to 6 hours minimum to execute. The entire architecture is designed around Murphy's Law. Assume everything that can fail will fail simultaneously. This is precisely why the system costs $280 million. You're not just buying helicopters and fuel. You're buying the capacity to execute a 3-phase operation where failure at any point cascades into catastrophe. You're buying insurance against Murphy's Law, but those 3 phases assume you're operating in permissive airspace, territory you control, enemies you've already degraded. Para-rescue was designed for the opposite assumption. You're going into hell, and hell is actively trying to kill you. The para-rescue pipeline takes 2 years. Attrition rate 80 to 90%. That's higher than Navy SEAL washout rates. But here's what most people misunderstand. These aren't commandos who learned medicine as an afterthought. They're combat medics who learned special operations. The medical skill comes first. Everything else builds on that foundation. That others may live isn't a recruiting slogan. It's operational doctrine. Afghanistan and Iraq generated more than 12,000 combat saves. That includes enemy combatants. Think about the operational absurdity. You train someone to medical school standards, ranger school standards, paramedic certification, linguistic capability, survival instructor qualification, and then drop them into conditions specifically designed to prevent medicine from happening. The medical paradox defines the job. Performing thoracostomy, inserting a chest tube to collapse a punctured lung, while taking fire from 3 directions with limited supplies. in dirt, and the patient survived and walked out. That capability is why CSAR costs $280 million annually. You're not training soldiers, you're training people who can function at the intersection of trauma surgery and direct combat. But even the best trained rescue force in history operates under one immutable constraint. The enemy gets to vote on your plan. And sometimes the enemy's vote is a helicopter getting shot out of the sky. Mogadishu, 1993. 2 Blackhawks shot down during an urban raid, Super 61, Super 64. The mission transformed from precision strike to 18-hour urban warfare. This is where CSAR doctrine met cascading catastrophe. Here's the compounding problem. Super 61's crash site became surrounded within minutes. The rescue force sent to extract survivors became pinned victims themselves. Then Super 64 went down. Pilot Mike Durant captured alive. Now you're not rescuing one person. You're rescuing more than 100 pinned soldiers across 12 city blocks against an estimated 2,000 militia fighters. CSAR doctrine assumes you're rescuing one person. Mogadishu forced the rescue of an entire task force that had become trapped executing a rescue. The operation designed to prevent casualties was generating casualties faster than it could extract them. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The leave no one behind promise nearly caused complete unit annihilation. US ground forces couldn't reach their own men. Extraction required UN and Pakistani armor to punch through, which means American soldiers needed foreign intervention to escape an American operation. The promise that was supposed to be a force multiplier became a strategic liability. The lesson Mogadishu burned into CSAR doctrine. Rescue can't be a standalone operation. It has to be integrated into the initial strike package. If you're not prepared to extract before the first shot is fired, you're just compounding targets. Every airstrike now includes pre-positioned rescue assets within rapid response range, even if no loss is expected. Mogadishu forced a brutal recalculation. CSAR couldn't be reactive anymore. It had to be predictive. Which brings us to Iran, where that lesson got stress-tested against a nuclear threshold adversary with modern air defenses. The details remain classified, but we know this much. A recent F-15 incident over Iranian airspace required combat search and rescue in contested territory. No operational specifics have been released, no timeline, no extraction method. And that information blackout tells you almost everything you need to know. Why this mission was categorically different from anything since Mogadishu. You're operating over a nuclear threshold state. Iran maintains reverse-engineered S-300 and local air defense networks. They can coordinate ground response through modern command infrastructure. And there's regional escalation risk. If the mission fails publicly, you've handed Iran a propaganda victory and forced a diplomatic crisis. The operational window before capture or international incident, somewhere between 4 and 6 hours, likely less. Iran would parade a captured American pilot as proof of US aggression. They'd dissect F-15 avionics for intelligence value. The strategic cost of failure wasn't just one life. It was handing a regional adversary proof that American air superiority is penetrable. We don't know operational details because CSAR in near-peer environments requires information blackout. The fact we know it succeeded and nothing else tells you the system worked exactly as Mogadishu's lessons demanded. Pre-positioned assets, integrated strike package, extraction before the enemy could consolidate. But notice what's different between CSAR in insurgent environments versus peer adversaries. Insurgents lack integrated air defenses. They lack national intelligence infrastructure. They can't coordinate multi-domain response. Iran has all of that, plus the ability to turn a downed pilot into a strategic crisis that forces White House-level decisions. Success isn't proof CSR is invincible. It's proof the $280 million annual investment buys some capability against peer threats, which makes the next question terrifying. Because if CSR already requires near-perfect execution against regional powers like Iran, what happens when the next downed pilot is over the Taiwan Strait? Pacific Theater CSR faces challenges that make Iran look manageable. You're talking about distances exceeding 2,000 miles. Peer air defenses, not regional, peer. China's integrated air defense network, and no forward bases for pre-positioned assets without exposing them to first strike vulnerability. Here's the strategic problem the Pentagon doesn't want to discuss publicly. The $280 million psychological weapon becomes a strategic liability if adversaries believe they can break the promise. China's anti-access area denial strategy specifically targets U.S. power projection, increasing CSAR capability. If they can prove we won't risk rescue in contested zones, pilot behavior changes, risk tolerance collapses, air superiority evaporates. The promise is only a weapon as long as it's unbreakable. The moment it breaks once, publicly, in a peer conflict, the entire deterrent value collapses. Every pilot recalculates, every adversary recalibrates, and the $280 million we spend annually stops buying combat power and starts buying exposure. That's the truth about combat search and rescue. We're not talking about saving lives, we're talking about reputation management in the most hostile environments on Earth. And reputation only protects you until someone calls your bluff.